Hello everyone! In current video game development, unless we're making a video game exclusively for a specific console with specific characteristics, it is normal to take into account that on Android devices and on PC we can have completely different resolutions. So we may ask ourselves, how do we configure our canvas in Unity so that it is responsive? That is what we are going to learn through this video. And of course, if you like it, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe. Let's start by explaining the theoretical concept of canvas component. When we create this element, what we are doing is placing a kind of invisible canvas over our camera. This will act as a container where our graphical interface and the UI elements it contains will be displayed. This component also contains some options that will allow these UI elements to be rescaled and repositioned based on a resolution that we specify. Before diving fully into Unity, let's answer the question: what are the UI elements we find in this program? They are very varied: images, texts, buttons, sliders, checkboxes, text areas to brighten or drop-down lists. With these few elements, we can create practically any graphical interface for our games. We have to keep in mind that with some of these UI objects, we can change any attribute of their components or collect the information that is written in them. Let's go with Unity. The first thing is to create the object with the canvas component. To do this, we right-click in the hierarchy and select Canvas. If there is no previous canvas object, we will see that Unity generates an event system element. This is what allows the different inputs to be collected so that our buttons work. Inputs such as clicks, pressing keys, and so on. Therefore, do not delete it. Or leave it if you want people not to be able to interact with your game menus and uninstall it. First of all, let's set up the resolution of our game to make sure everything is configured properly from the start. We go to the game window, and in it we make sure it says Full HD. In case you want another resolution, you can click on the drop-down and choose 4K or even customize it. Here, I am going to give you a small recommendation that I have learned over time, and that is to set up several different resolutions, forcing some aspect ratios so that later we can do tests. You just have to click the plus button at the bottom, give it a name and set its resolution. Now yes, let's start with the canvas scaler component, which is going to play a fundamental role. The first thing we will always do is set up the UI scale mode to scale with screen size. This will tell Unity, hey, I want you to adapt according to the reference resolution that I set for you. So it is important that in reference resolution we set the same we have in the game window. In screen match mode, we will leave it as it comes by default. The match section we will leave at 0 if our resolution is horizontal and 1 if the screen will be vertical. A small note about everything we have just done. It is important that you do it, because it will save you from problems where your buttons designed in Photoshop or the program you are using are not displayed at the same size as your reference resolution. But now let's see where the magic happens exactly. Let's create, as an example, an image object. To do this, in the hierarchy we will right-click on the canvas object, UI Image. This object will contain an image component, which is the one that manages that in this UI element an image is displayed, as its name indicates. At the top, we must expand the rect transform component. This is where the anchor points come into play and the way in which its transformations will be carried out when readapting to other resolutions. In the upper left part of the rect transform, we have this that says middle center. This allows us to set the anchor points. That is, it determines to which part of the canvas a UI element remains attached when the resolution or screen size changes. In this panel we have different presets for the anchor points. Here we have to differentiate two concepts. The anchor indicates to which part of the screen an UI element is attached, which is indicated by these arrows, while the pivot is the point from which an element is positioned, rotated and scaled, which is represented by this blue circle. Normally, with a simple click it is enough to link it to a specific point. With the Shift key, we can reposition the anchor point and the pivot. With the Alt key, we can move the object and its anchor point. And with the Shift and the Alt keys together, we can reposition both anchor point, pivot, and object. In the presets window, we also have the option to set it to scale according to the size of the screen, which corresponds to these blue arrows. Now then, how do we apply all this to our responsive design? The first thing is to link the different UI elements to the point where we want them to reposition themselves. For example, if this button is closer to the upper left part, we must place the anchor point there. At this point, there is a very important step that you must do to perform checks. Do you remember when I told you earlier that it was advisable to set the several resolutions? This is because every time you change the anchor point, you should make sure that everything works correctly. In the previous example, let's now try changing the resolutions. As you can see, the element repositions itself according to the configuration we have given it in the anchor point presets. Finally, let's see a small example. If we have, for example, this health HUD at the top left, I have placed the anchor point here. In the upper right side, I have the score, so the anchor points are placed in that corner. Now, let's see what happens if I change the different resolutions. As you can see, now our game HUD scales and adapts perfectly to the different resolutions that we may have in a video game for Android or PC. With this, we finish the video on how to set up our UI canvas to be responsive. I hope it has been well understood. For more videos on Unity, give it a like and subscribe. Thank you very much and see you soon!